All right, today we're going to talk about someone from way, way back, a guy from the ancient world whose big problem was, well, too much noise, and his solution feels surprisingly modern. We're diving into the story of St. Anthony of Egypt and his pretty radical way of finding some peace and quiet.
I mean, really think about it. The constant notifications from your phone, the endless scrolling, that pressure to be connected all the time. You ever just get to the end of the day and feel like there's been zero space for quiet, for any kind of real deep thought? It's a uniquely modern kind of exhaustion, isn't it? Well, what if I told you that almost 1700 years ago, someone felt a similar kind of overwhelm, and his answer was so extreme, so absolute, that it literally changed the course of history? Let's get into it. So, our story really kicks off with this single, life-changing moment. We're talking about how one wealthy young man heard a line from the Gospels and decided to take it not as some nice metaphor, but as a direct, personal instruction manual for his life. So, who was this guy, Anthony? He was born around the year 251 in Egypt into a pretty well-off Christian family. By all accounts, he kind of had it made. Money, security, the whole deal. But, even as a young man, he was looking for something more, something deeper, and he kept finding himself drawn to the Gospels. And this is a sentence that changed everything. One day in church, Anthony hears this verse from the Gospel of Matthew. Now, for him, these weren't just, nice-sounding words. This was a command, a direct challenge. And his response? It was immediate and it was total. And when I say total, I mean he took this command literally. He didn't just donate a little bit of his money. He sold his entire inheritance and gave it all away. He made sure his sister was taken care of, and then he just walked away from everything. He headed straight into the Egyptian desert to live completely alone as a hermit. I mean, absolutely no half measures here. But leaving society was really just the beginning. Now he had to forge a whole new life in one of the most brutal environments on the planet. The desert wasn't just his new home. It was a physical and spiritual battleground. Okay, so the philosophy that was guiding him is something called asceticism. It's a word we don't use much, but the core idea is pretty straightforward. It's all about practicing intense self-discipline to try and free your spirit from all the worldly distractions so you can focus completely on God. So what did that actually look like day to day? Well, we're talking extreme solitude, constant prayer, and serious fasting. But listen, this was no peaceful retreat. The ancient stories about his life describe it as this intense spiritual struggle, a constant battle against his own temptations and fears, all fought in the silence of the desert, all to get to that deep communion with God. And this is where we get to the great irony, the paradox of Anthony's life. The more he tried to be alone, the more he tried to just disappear from the world, the more fascinated the world became with him. His reputation for holiness started to spread, and people actually began seeking him out, trekking into the desert, just hoping for a little bit of his wisdom. And this is how one person's private, radical choice accidentally started a massive spiritual movement. He didn't set out to start anything, not at all, but he ended up becoming known as the father of monasticism, an idea that would go on to shape Western civilization for centuries. Just look at this incredible ripple effect. First, it's just a small group of disciples gathering near him. But then, a biography called The Life of Anthony gets written, and it becomes a smash hit, a bestseller all across the Roman Empire. That one book goes on to inspire people like St. Benedict to create organized, structured monasteries. And just like that, one man's personal ideals, poverty, prayer, simplicity, they become the foundation for centuries of Christian life. And this is so important to understand. His retreat into the desert was not about escaping the world's problems. When a huge theological debate, the Arian controversy, was threatening to split the church, Anthony actually came out of the desert. He stood up publicly and defended what he believed, proving he was a man of deep conviction and action, not just quiet contemplation. So what on earth does a 4th century hermit have to say to us, right here, right now, with our smartphones and our 24/7 news cycles? Well, this is where his story comes full circle and actually becomes incredibly practical. This comparison is pretty amazing when you think about it. For our constant digital distraction, he offers the idea of intentional solitude. For our culture of nonstop consumerism, he offers interior freedom, basically the ability to have things without being owned by them. And for our deep fear of struggle and failure, he's a model of perseverance, showing us how to see trials not as roadblocks, but as part of the journey itself. So, what are the big takeaways from his life? I think there are four really powerful ones. First, this radical idea that true fulfillment isn't about what you own, but maybe what you can live without. Second, that silence isn't just empty space, it's actually where deep connection can happen. Third, that a worthwhile life isn't free from struggle, it's defined by how we face those struggles. And finally, that real, powerful change often starts on the margins, far away from the centers of power.
In the end, his legacy is that of a powerful witness. He's a witness to what can happen when a person takes their deepest beliefs and decides to live them out all the way, without any compromise, no matter what it costs. And that really just leaves us with a final question. Look, most of us aren't being called to live alone in a desert, but the challenge he presents is still there. In our crazy, noisy world, what does it mean for you to live without compromise? What's the one thing you believe in so deeply that you would build your whole life around it? It's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.